I'm a huge fan of crypto and its utility. I support Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. But there's a lot of large-scale Bitcoin owners like the Winklevoss twins, etc., who have made significant donations in an effort to manipulate his perception of crypto to their benefit. And so I think that's the perfect example of him being transactional and can be manipulated. People trying to look at him as a good business person when he literally can't run his own businesses. You don't hear stories about his overwhelming success.
Shark Tank star Mark Cuban has come a long way over the last few years and is extremely bullish on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a number of other crypto projects. Right now, Cuban is one of the most forthright figures in the crypto space. But the one crypto project that he is most optimistic about is Ethereum as a result of its position as the #1 smart contract platform. In a recent interview, Cuban talked about why he thinks that crypto is being manipulated and used as a bargaining tool between the two presidential candidates. Donald Trump, the first of the two to come out in support of crypto, has been accepting party donations in crypto from business figures such as the Winklevoss twins. For Cuban, this constitutes the manipulation of the crypto market. Make sure to watch to the rest of this video where Cuban discusses the latest bull run and why he thinks that prices will continue to go up. Also, if you enjoy listening to crypto-related content, please show your support by liking and subscribing to this channel by following the link in my bio. And get access to my free daily crypto updates and expert predictions direct to your inbox. Each newsletter contains market intelligence, on-chain data, and latest updates from experts in the crypto space. All of this is available completely free of charge. Signing up only takes a moment and you can always change your mind later on. Now back over to Mark Cuban.
With Bitcoin testing a new all-time high right now, your thoughts on this crypto rally, and I guess just as importantly, since you've been outspoken about it in the past, how much your portfolio is in cryptocurrency?
I don't even know how much, but it's happy. ETH to a smaller extent. Bitcoin is just driven by supply and demand. There's only going to be 21 million of them. The more people that buy and the fewer people that sell, that means the price is going to go up. That's just the nature of it. It's a great store of value. That's why I have an investment in it, because I do feel that the demand is going to exceed the number of people selling. ETH, we'll see what happens with the ETF and whether or not that gets approved. But because of the way it works, it's a little bit different and it's a little bit more driven by utility, but there's more and more applications coming for the utility. The biggest disappointment of crypto so far has been there's not that one application where you go to your grandma and she says, I got to get this new crypto app because all my friends are using it. Kind of like we saw in the early days of apps with Instagram. We need that transitional application for crypto to be ubiquitous. But until then, just from an investment perspective, I'm investing in Bitcoin over gold all day, every day, and I've said that for years. Any new technology, I don't care what it is, and I've been involved with a lot of new technologies, disruptive technologies. I could take you back to the early days of streaming when we were the very first commercial streaming company, and right off the bat, it was hard to use. If you think back to 1995 and you wanted to stream just audio, you had to have a subscription with an internet service provider. Then to make that work, you had to download a client which had a TCP/IP client. Then you had to download a streaming audio client, and you had to have the right kind of modem. There were all these pieces that had to fit together. It was complicated. I'll just turn on the radio. What the hell do I have to go through all that hassle to just listen to a sporting event? And we reached that initial stage, and then all of a sudden it got a little bit boring. Right, because you had to wait for the new applications to come along. We had to wait for live to come along. We had to wait for video to come along. We started, streaming audio in 1995. When we did video, it was 1998. And even then, it was only postage stamp size. And it was only, in 2012, let's say 2013, 14, almost 20 years later, where people looked at streaming like, okay, it's normal, right? You just click on Netflix and it just streams, and you don't have to do anything else. Well, with crypto, it's very analogous to that. We're in the early hassle phages. Now, the very earliest of crypto, however you want to decide the beginning with Bitcoin or whatever, has been around 12 years. But in terms of applications with smart contracts, that's only 2017 for the most part. And so we're really only 5 years in. So I'm still really bullish on crypto. We had some early wins, just like, streaming audio with sports and news. Now, with crypto, you have DeFi and you have, money transfer and some other applications, but you haven't had any mainstream applications where your mom says, okay, we've got to get a wallet because I have to do A, B, or C, right? It's been DeFi, NFTs, and money transfer. And so it's kind of boring right now. we're waiting for that next round of applications, and there's a lot of people working on them. You know, NFTs for the resale of books. So we take NFTs past the collectible markets to the utility markets. NFTs for refi, which is for carbon offsets, buying and selling and trading carbon offsets, and even burning them so that they're not resold all the time, but they have a direct impact on the environment. And there'll be more and more and more of those applications that bring in, that are more mainstream. But they're not all the way here. They're not truly mainstream yet. And so we're going through that lull. And you saw the same thing with the internet too, right? Until mobile phones came along, from 1995 to 2007 with the iPhone, right? I mean, you had Amazon, you could go shopping and you could stream, but it wasn't like it was just earth shattering. But once we got it on mobile, then we got the App Store in 2009? And then even remember there, the first apps on the App Store were like, here, look, let me hold my phone like this and it looks like I'm drinking a beer. Game. Right? Yeah, it looks like I'm drinking a beer. There's no reason why crypto's gonna be any different. But the good news is, you know, the investments I'm looking to make are geared towards applications that'll be mainstream and not about, okay, let's create an Instagram for crypto. Let's create a Twitter. Not Me Too type applications. More like, okay, things that take advantage of smart contracts and distributed environments.
What are some ideas and topics that make you excited?
NFTs as books, I think particularly for textbooks. Now, whether or not we can get the college textbook publishers to go along is another issue. But, you know, the idea of kids buying books for classes today. My daughter just went to Vanderbilt. So the whole process of buying books, you know, first, do you want to buy new or used? Right? Then you lug these books back, and then at the end of the semester, because they're only good for the time you were in the class, you make the decision. You know, yeah, I'm going to sell it. How do I sell it? Do I ship it off? Do I take it to the bookstore? It's just a pain in the ass, and in a digital world, it's ridiculous. And you know, with those as NFTs, well, the NFTs allow you to apply royalties that when that book is resold, the author and the publisher and whoever else is involved can get a set royalty fee. So that means that, you know, the publishers and people who created the book can keep on getting paid, whereas when there's a physical book that gets sold and resold, they have to hope that book falls apart, you know, and so that they can sell a new one. And so I think that's a great application. As I talk about environmental impact with trading of carbon offsets, I think insurance, being able to very easily buy insurance, but I think in terms of the home run type applications and more complicated, longer to develop type things, you know, I think things like health insurance, right? The whole process of getting a claim pre-approved or approved after the fact is horrible. Nobody likes dealing with their insurance company, their health insurance company. First of all, for pre-approvals, you never know whether or not you'll get pre-approved or not. And when you go, it's not like the UK where you just go to the NHS and you just hope they have it, not if you'll get approved. You know, here it's like, all right, I have this need, the doctor's prescribing it for me, but I can't afford to pay it out of pocket. By creating an environment where you have 1,000 validators, there's different types of, you know, optimistic roll-up where you have validators and challengers, right? So you could train people to be a validator and pay them every time they validate, approve or don't approve claim. The optimistic roll-up side of it, the challengers will say, okay, you didn't approve this, but not for the right reason. Your training says you should have approved it. I'm challenging it. So anything that you're staking that you put up to get paid for that, I get. And that keeps it honest. That's just a crypto way of keeping things honest. And so that type of application has scale, it has impact, and it's better in a decentralized, you know, wide and flat organization than vertically integrated company like our traditional companies. And I know that's deep in the weeds, you know, but that's the reality, right? You've got, you know, any tech advancement, you've got to start, you know, Steve Jobs had this great saying. He said, everything's a remix. And you have to look at new technologies and look at things the way they're being done and say, okay, how can I remix these together? You know, how can I do a mashup in music terms, right? And if you can mash this stuff up and have it make sense and make it easier for and better for people to use, that's a big win. My dad did upholstery on cars and worked 6 days a week, getting up early, coming home late. Lost an eye. Physically was just beat, crawling in cars, pulling out seats, you know, cutting the tops off to turn them into convertibles. It was just, you know, he busted it to do what he could for us. But he always smiled and he was always great. And he just gave me the attitude that, you know, work is work, but, you know, you only have one life. And, you know, it's interesting to me that, One of the questions people always ask me is, what would you tell your younger self? And they allude to the fact that, what would you tell your 16 or 17 or 18-year-old self? And really, that's not the self I would want to talk to. What my dad taught me was, talk to your 40-year-old self, your 50-year-old self, because we hit 40 and we think we're old. We hit 50 and you're going to think you're old. You're not. He was adamant about the fact that today's the youngest you're going to be, and you got to live young and be young and act young and feel young. The young 40-year-old, the young 50-year-old, that's who needs to hear it. And I learned that from my dad, and that was the most impactful thing. And then my wife and my kids, they don't listen to me, but I've learned to listen to them and realize that it's their world. It's not. And what I do today that can make their future better and brighter is important. And that the game is different, whether it's climate change, whether it's healthcare. My generation's an embarrassment. Abby Hoffman was taking over college campuses, or storming buildings and taking over the president of the college's offices, and we were going to be the revolutionaries that changed the world. We turned into the people who watch TV news all the time and make all our decisions from watching newscasts. That's an embarrassment. I want to avoid that and try to fight that off and try to learn as much as I can from my kids. And I'll give you one quick example. I love to read. And I try to get my son, in particular my middle daughter, to read. And they're like, nah, we get it from video. And early on, I was adamant. And then one day my son, and my daughter has examples too, but my son started asking me Shark Tank questions. And he was asking me, why don't I do royalty deals? And I started explaining, well, it eats up cash flow and it reduces gross margin. I'm like, do you know what gross margin is? And he was like, yeah, it's the difference between your sales price and your cost of goods sold. I'm like, well, how did you, he was like 10 years old, 9, 10 years old. I'm like, how did you learn that? TikTok. And it made me realize that they weren't the one with the problem. I was the one holding on to things the way I did it, thinking that was the only way to do it. And I think that's what my kids are teaching me, that a lot of the things that my generation might look down on for my kids, they got it right and we got it wrong.
Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe for news and expert predictions direct to your inbox.